Welcome to episode 93 of Toward a Better Life. This is your host, Kevin Pennell. Think of me as your guide while we're traveling together down this road, creating more fulfilling, rewarding, and healthier lives. Toward a Better Life podcast features like-minded people sharing their stories, ideas, and activities on what we can do to generate a better life individually and collectively. If you'd like to share your story, tell a story, share some music. Also, if there's a subject you'd like to hear about on the show, please write me, kevin@towardabetterlife.com. And if there's an audio version of something, please make sure it's an MP3 file. Spread the word if you enjoy the episode. Please consider following the show, subscribing through your favorite podcast platform. You know, a free way to support the show is by leaving your review. This is so important. Just leave it on Apple Podcasts. It's a chance to tell the world about what you love about the show and how it helps others to discover it too. Today's show is packed with a great interview and a wonderful song as well that encourages to express our gratitude through our creative gifts. First, I'm talking with Jeremy Haselwood, a dynamic and accomplished two-time best-selling author, including his latest book, Finding Your Edge: How to Unlock Your Talent and Purpose. He's been on, I think he's been on NBC, CBS, a couple of other things. So it's quite an opportunity that we have to talk with Jeremy on today's show. And by the way, that book even debuted number 2 on the Life Transformation book charts, and we'll have a link in the show notes about how do you get a copy of it. Jeremy has a deep-seated passion for empowering individuals and organizations, dedicating his career to helping people maximize their talent and purpose. Let's begin to identify and find our edge with Jeremy Haselwood. We have the opportunity today on Toward a Better Life to welcome Jeremy Haselwood. Jeremy, welcome to the program. Glad to have you with us today.
Hey, Kevin, glad to be here. Thank you.
Sure. I have to say something that's very interesting that I picked up on you when I was looking around, and I found that you talk about edge a lot and you talk about a book a lot, which you should.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that's most fascinating to me is that you like to guide people through the transformative edge framework.
Yeah.
And actually, I think I'd like to focus there. But before we go on with that, could you tell us a little bit about Jeremy and what you've been up to and what your focus is?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jeremy Haselwood. I have a marketing consulting company called Ampla Marketing, and where I do digital marketing for clients, small, medium-sized businesses, nonprofits. And in addition to that, there's personal development side of my work where I do coaching, workshops, speaking, and I've published 2 books. And kind of the background from that, I live in Atlanta. Long story short, maybe we'll get into it on this podcast, maybe a future one or another time, is I'm originally from Oklahoma and moved out to Atlanta over 20 years ago, really to pursue a career in the music industry. And things didn't exactly go as planned, had some ups, downs, learned a lot about myself, a lot about what I'm capable of, and everything that I learned really in my 20s about kind of that struggle is created who I am today and the work that I do.
Okay. So you got my curiosity. What end of music were you performing? Were you engineering? What were you doing?
Yeah, no, actually, as a friend of mine, we had a rap group. So yeah, it was two white dudes from Oklahoma rap group. That's why we had to get out of Oklahoma. We needed to go to a different market where maybe there's an opportunity. Now, if we were country music, okay, Oklahoma might be the spot, but we had to get out of there. Yep.
I understand that. So you're a two-time best-selling author, 20 years experience in digital marketing. I have to ask, now I see the personal development part, but digital marketing, personal development, how do you meld those two things together? I'm curious.
Gosh, I mean, that's the secret right there, is how do I do it? And it's kind of difficult because they are very opposite, and it's really almost like 2 audiences that I have to speak to, because there's digital marketing and it's a talent that I have, and we'll get into like talents and purpose because that's kind of the whole basis of my book. I'm passionate about marketing, digital marketing. I'm intrigued by it. It's always changing, which is good. It doesn't get stagnant. Then the personal development to me is more my purpose-driven work and how I really want to affect people and help inspire and motivate and kind of guide people to have a better life and one that's filled with joy and purpose. So it's not easy to melt those because my coaching clients or people that read my book, yes, they're people and people work at businesses and run businesses, but the clients that I deal with on the marketing side are more about metrics and sales or donations and things like that. So, sometimes I can weave it in and there is some crossover where some of my clients I can, do a workshop or something like that for personal development, self-care, something like that, but a lot of times it's just separate because of the nature of those two kinds of business models.
Yeah. Have you got a passion toward one or the other? Are you leaning toward one or the other right now?
Yeah, I mean the passion is for both, but the
Sure.
purpose is definitely for the life transformational and
Okay.
self improvement work.
Yeah. And we'll ask you again toward
Mhm.
the end of the program, but let's share it as well right now, and that is
Mhm.
let's get the title of the book and how
Yeah.
can you find it?
Sure. The title of the book is Finding Your Edge: How to Unlock Your Talent and Purpose. And it's available on Amazon, Kindle, Apple Books. It's hard copy, paperback. And then if you like my voice, there's the audio version. I actually read the book myself. So if you can't stand my voice, just get the book that you can read.
Your
Yeah.
voice is fine.
Yeah.
Trust me. So let's talk about unlocking some talents and purpose in life.
Yeah.
Those are a
Sure.
couple of big areas. And
Yeah.
I I was reading something recently, and at the same time, one of my recent guests on the program was talking about how we look at happiness and at the
Hmm.
same time we look at purpose.
Hmm.
And one of them says, happiness is the way because, you've got all these people to talk about, the importance of happiness. And I get that, and that's fine. And I
Hmm.
mean, goodness gracious, the Dalai Lama talks about happiness and the importance of happiness.
Hmm.
But at the same time, if you're happy without a purpose,
Hmm.
that's where the other guy came in. And I never thought
Yeah.
about that because you can be happy, but if you don't have a
Hmm.
purpose, where's your driving point?
Yeah.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
it does. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think
Mm-mm.
you can be both. You can,
Mm-hmm.
of course, be in your purpose and happy, and you can have happiness without purpose. In my opinion, happiness without purpose is your impact is limited,
That, yeah.
but you could be perfectly happy in your life and this calling. Number one, you may not know what your calling is. You may not have done that work on yourself, and you may not have this drive necessarily to achieve it, and you're just cool status quo. And that's fine, but it just, to me, I'm like, we're all here on this earth one time. While we're here, what are we doing? I do feel like every person put on this earth, you, me, people listening to this, like there's a reason you're here. It's not just to, work and take up oxygen and drink water and all that. Like there's something that you're supposed to be doing. And let's tap into that. And what I find is, yes, you can be happy without it, but when you are really living in your purpose, when you discover it, when you chase after it and you're living it, it unlocks like that next level of joy that you
Mm,
wouldn't have otherwise.
yeah. And so when you look at some of these different topics and you start to explore your purpose,
Hmm.
let's think about finding that edge a little bit
Hmm.
if we can.
Sure.
And what attracted me too is you broke it down, I see, in about four different ways in
Hmm.
looking at your book.
Hmm.
And I'd like to look at each one of those if we could. One is
Sure.
eliminate distractions. Another is
Hmm.
discover yourself,
Hmm.
generate goals. And a biggie for me, and
Hmm.
probably a biggie for a lot of people, is enact discipline.
Yes.
I got to say that one of the biggest things that faces anybody that has their own projects, their own business, whatever,
Hmm.
a writer, a talent, whatever,
Yeah.
enact discipline.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow. You know what I can do today? I can go outside and I can
Mm.
do this and I can do. Oh, wait a minute. I need to go over here and do.
Right. Right. And interestingly, it almost goes hand in hand with eliminating distractions. And I
Mm,
do feel like the eliminating distractions kind of where you start with this personal growth, the
hmm.
eliminate distractions, and then where you end with enacting discipline. Like all of these steps are important. Discover yourself, generate goals, but these two, like if you can't start this work without eliminating these distractions and gaining focus. And you can't finish this work and enacting discipline without eliminating distractions and being focused. So they're kind of bookends to each other. And it's interesting because they both end with E. So they're almost like these twin pillars that are, you know, circle around this whole model of edge.
So, what are some ways that we can eliminate distractions?
Yeah, the way that we need to eliminate distractions is first be aware of what these distractions are. Because a lot of times we're just kind of coasting through life. We have our patterns, we have our habits, and we've kind of fallen into this sea of distraction that we didn't even agree to join. Number one is probably, for most people, for me at least, is your cell phone. Like, our cell phones do so much now. We can take them with us everywhere that we go. You know, back when we were kids, at least, you know, our generation, not the Gen Zs of now, but we didn't have that capability. You know, we had to go outside and we could have toys or bikes or something like that, but we just couldn't have this distraction with us all the time, like a phone or a tablet. But now as adults, like we do have that. And the Gen Zs and whatever the next generation is, they have these distractions from the get-go. So that could be a distraction, but technology and phones are not the only distractions. So where I usually start with this, and I kind of give some guidance in the book, is let's take inventory around us. Like, what are things that are distracting us? And it could be phones, it could be food, it could be entertainment, it could be people in your life that
Hmm.
necessarily they could be toxic people, or they could be people that are good for you and add into you. But how are you balancing the time and putting borders around that and boundaries around that? So recognizing what these distractions are is first and foremost. So once you do figure out what these distractions are, now you can at least name them and do the work to put boundaries around them or eliminate them completely. You know, some things just aren't good for you, period. And you may just need to cold turkey certain things in your life if you have the discipline to do that. And if not, it's, you know, phone time. You know, there's a lot of people that will put their phones up at night, you know, at a certain time of day. Like if it's past 9 p.m., the phones go up or the television goes off or whatever the case may be. And that may be what some people need. Some people may need, here's the time of day that I'm going to engage in activities like with people, like I'm going to go to these events or talk to these people, friends, or whatever the case may be. And then this time is my time to focus on my dreams, my plans, my purpose. So that would be some of the ways that you can actually do it. And keeping a log, like one thing that I put in the book is like the work is, it's a lot of work to do this, but just for even 1 week, like keep an inventory of your day. Like, how did you spend today?
Hmm.
And you can go very minute with this to every 15 minutes if you want. And yes, it's a lot of documentation to do that. But when you do this and you look back at your week and you're like, wow, I spent how much time like watching reality TV shows? Like, that's
Hmm.
crazy. Like, that actually sucked brain cells out of me rather than actually building me up. So, being aware of these things that actually take you further away from your purpose.
You've summed a lot of stuff up in that one little part, and that is a
Mm,
couple of them that I really pick up on is recognize it, and then part of that recognition is to give it a name. My experience has said that when I recognize it, that is a piece of it. It's a very important piece of it, but now
mhm.
give it a name.
Yes.
When we name it, it really gets us into our subconscious. And if you really
Hmm.
want to take it to the next level, you do the other part, and you just mentioned it, write it down,
Hmm.
because that's a learning process. We know
Yes.
that.
Hmm.
Education's taught us that what we're doing right now, people are listening to this and they're hearing it. That's a learning process. But if you take it and you write it down, a piece that maybe jumps out at you in the program, now
Hmm.
you've really started to initiate something. Initiate, I'm going to say the magic word. You probably initiated a change
Hmm.
because it speaks to you and you
Yes.
want to make this change. And
Yeah.
maybe part of that how could be other things like you could do, eliminating distractions. One of the easiest things to do for me is I
Hmm.
learned how to meditate. And
Yeah.
you say, well, that doesn't work because you got all these brain monkeys that are in your head all the time.
Yeah.
But you learn how to put those brain monkeys aside, and
Hmm.
they're just there. So you move
Yeah.
on. You find what works for you. Maybe it's going, like you said, it could be a lot of things. It could be a treadmill, it could be elliptical, it could go for a run, go for a walk,
Yeah.
whatever. to
Yeah.
learn how to avoid distraction. And when
Yeah.
they come in, put them away.
Yeah. Well, and what you talk about to me is I call it like the power of the pause, like meditation, like you're pausing. For me, it's like when I'm in the shower, I have so many ideas because there's nothing to do but let the water hit me and wash myself. So my
Yeah.
brain is always like wide open, and so much to a point that my wife bought me like this journal. She's like, every time you come out of the shower, like you're wanting to write something down. And so she bought me this journal, but it's because it's a pause. My day, like I'm always going, whether I'm engaging with clients or client work or something, I'm always doing something. So whether it's a run, whether it's meditation, I do yoga a couple days a week, and I'm like, for me, like it's good because I can just be still and let my mind think about something else. But that is doing work on yourself, and having that space for yourself to breathe, and it is work on yourself, and you don't even realize the benefits of that until you do it.
So as you eliminate the distractions and you've
Mhm.
written down some of these things, you recognize them, give them
Yeah.
names.
Yeah.
What you're really doing is you're doing the next step that you're
Yeah.
talking about here, and that's discovering about yourself.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. And this whole process, like this whole edge process, you really have to become a student of yourself. If you're really serious about life transformation or development, it's not something where you listen to a podcast or watch a video on YouTube or read a book. Like my book is a resource, but you're not just going to read it and change. Like you actually
Hmm.
become a student of yourself. And being a student means you actually do have to break out the pen and paper or laptop. You have to take notes, you have to journal, just like we're documenting and recognizing these distractions. And kind of to your point, when you name what these distractions are, you're aware of it. Very similar when discovering yourself. Like there's different assessments and batteries that you can take. Like, I mean, even simple ones. Like you've got like the Gary Chapman's love language quiz, which yes, it's based on a book, but you learn about yourself through that. Myers-Briggs, Clifton
Hmm.
Strengths, DISC. There's all these different resources that are personal batteries, assessments that you can do. That's one piece. And just addressing those, what I do like about these kinds of assessments goes back to eliminating distractions, and you learn labels about yourself. And I know some people don't necessarily like to be labeled or don't like labels. But to me, when you know what that label is and you can identify this trait or attribute about yourself, it helps you to make sense and really accept certain things about yourself, certain characteristics. So, for example, like, all right, so love languages, for example, if you find out that your love language is like gifts, like you've kind of known this about yourself, but you didn't really know it because there was never a label assigned to be like, oh, I think that is, yes, all these love languages are important, but gifts really do speak to me more than anything else. And now that I know that about myself, because I have a label with it, the way that I communicate to my partner is different than what it would have been previously. For any of these other assessments, if you learn that you're really a optimistic person, but you didn't never considered yourself optimistic, but now there's a label, or pessimistic, either one. If you're a pessimistic person and you're like, oh, okay, I guess there actually is a label for this and that's okay. But now that I know that I'm a pessimistic or optimistic person, how do I move in the world now that I've confirmed that and I know that? So you're learning these things about yourself. And aside from assessments and batteries, like, you may do counseling, you may have a coach, even friends and family. Like one thing that I struggle with was when I stopped doing music and was trying to figure out what's next is like, I don't really know what I want to do now. I know who I am, but I don't know who I am. So let me ask my friends and family that I trust, like, and just ask them, what do you think I'm good at? Like when you see me move, you've known me for a long time. What am I good at? Because sometimes we don't know what we're good at because we just wake up and we are who we are. And there's skills that we have that other people don't have. And some people are envious, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're like, man, Jeremy does this so good, or Kevin does this so good. He's a natural at it, or she's a natural at it. And we don't realize what we're natural at because it's just who we are. So when you have that mirror of people around you that love and care about you and can say, no, you're really good at this, that also puts a label in. So you're discovering these things about yourself. And through this process, like you're journaling, Like one thing about my book, at the end of every chapter, I have like journal prompts. So, yes, you just read something where you're learning about yourself. And now let's write about it and really keep a document that is something that we can reflect back to and look at our path of growth.
So part of the discovering yourself, I think also, and you can elaborate on this a little bit, you
Hmm.
may find some things about yourself that maybe you don't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to understand, or we should understand, that I'm not stuck with that. I'm not
Hmm.
stuck in that. I can actually do that magic word again. I can change.
Yeah.
And anyone that begins that process of change should understand that change is not always that pleasant.
Yeah.
And sometimes I even would say change is a bed of roses. And they said, how do you figure that? And I said, well, it's
Mhm.
really pretty to look at, it has a great aroma, but it also has thorns.
Yeah. 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 Very true.
And be prepared that when you ask those good people, and those could be people that are on your rescue team, if you want to call them that,
Hmm.
that you're building up this relationship with different people that you trust. And let me underscore that: trust these people, that you feel
Yes.
comfortable with them,
Yeah.
and you'll know who they are.
Hmm.
But if they give you an idea that you need to initiate a change, they're probably saying it out of the goodness of their heart, and they say, well, if you did this, you might be a little bit better.
Right. Right. And especially if people can communicate to you in that way. A lot of times when people give you feedback or say something, they just say what not to do or what hurts. But it's like, you've done this and it hurts. But what's the alternative? Like, you've done this and it hurts. But if you were to approach it like this, like, I could receive that better, or I would feel a little bit better. Sometimes what I find is also some of your biggest strengths can also be things that are your biggest weakness. They work for you, but externally, they don't work for other people. Like what I've found about myself, and this goes back to like things about you that you may not like.
Hmm.
For me, it's like I've always been pretty stubborn, and that really benefits me in business and the work and accomplishing my goals because I'm like, I'm going to get this done. But in relationships, that doesn't always work. And so being aware that that's a part of my personality, and over years of knowing this, like, I'm still not perfect, but I've come a long way in who I was, handling my stubbornness with other people, with my spouse, than what I used to be, and I still have work to go. But and oops, sometimes I just have to kind of catch myself on that, or my spouse will be like, hey, here's what you're doing, and it's like, okay, I have to snap back and be aware of this trait that can come off in a way that, and sometimes could be, I mean, just destructive to other people, because I move in a way that works for me and has helped me be successful in many areas. But just being aware of this, and knowing that this is a part of who I am, how, now that I'm aware, how can I better operationalize that within my relationships, and being conscious of these things, and that's one piece. It could be other attributes that other people have.
And we're just seeing a tier here, aren't we? As far as tiered stuff, because not
Yeah, yeah,
emotional tier, but you see how
yeah,
this
yeah,
is building. So the
yeah,
next natural progression is you've discovered
yeah,
yourself, and you
yeah.
discovered some of the really cool things that you can do. And
Right.
maybe there's some things we need to change. And where do you go with
Yep.
that? You generate goals.
Exactly. And like that tier of generating goals, like, as we can see how these tiers do develop, you eliminate these distractions so you can really focus in and do this work on yourself. And you're kind of going with you're cleansing the palette in a way to really be open to discover yourself, because you can't even begin that work until you have that stillness and focus. When we move to generating goals, you can't generate goals. I mean, you can generate goals and not know a thing about yourself. Like, hey, this week I'm going to do X. This year I want to accomplish Y, but your goals may be misinformed.
Hmm.
So to really generate goals that align with who you are and what you know about yourself, we're starting to build these blocks of purpose. So we know that we're really good at this and we're really good at that. So now when we generate goals, it's more built around who we are, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and where we want our life to go. So there's a lot more intent in generating goals once you have done this work of discovering yourself. Because again, like, it can be ill informed to not do this work and generate a goal. And generating goals, this doesn't have to be some big life goal that you have, so we can start small because you're still working on yourself. You're still doing the work. So you don't necessarily need to say in life, I want to accomplish X. Like, let's just start today. Like, what have we learned about ourselves today? And what is something that I can do today, just to generate a small goal? Because some people struggle, and this kind of goes to getting ahead of myself with enacting discipline, like just starting something small. If you struggle with discipline or struggle with focus, like, let's just do things bite size and set little benchmarks along the way. If we're trying to say, where are we going to be in 3 years? Like, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know where I'll be next month. So let me figure out what I'm going to do this week and then this month. And then let's kind of build this plan to what 3 years or 5 years, how we want that to look.
And that's excellent advice, Jeremy, because we live in a society that says that I want it all and I want it all now.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good. That's fine.
Hmm.
But you have to make steps and you have to do sometimes baby steps to get there.
Hmm.
And, pick it out.
Yeah.
And this may sound silly, but I see that, okay, so maybe one of my things about discovering myself, I really need to make a change in is I sleep in too much. We'll just pick on
Hmm.
that.
Sure.
So make your first goal. I'm going to get up 10 minutes earlier tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's an example of it. Make it small, make it different.
Right.
And, so move with it at your pace. Maybe there are a couple of people that have gotten your book,
Mhm.
and we are competitive by nature, aren't we?
Yeah. Hmm.
So you could actually, find out, so what have you done with goals? Oh, I've been doing this, 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 and this. And
Right.
maybe you've only done this and this.
Right. Right.
And you don't need to feel inadequate. You don't need to
Mm-mm.
feel guilty that
Right.
you're not where that other person is, because I'm going to say there are many pathways up the mountain, but there's only one mountain. And
Yes.
maybe their pathway is really close to yours and you can say hi
Yeah.
to them every now and again, but
Yeah.
they're on a different path than you. They're in a
Yeah.
different motivational straight than you. So
Exactly.
go at your pace. It's
Yeah.
okay with that.
Right.
And so
Just, I'm like, just go, just do something,
do something.
and even it doesn't even have to be every single day. It's like
Hmm.
maybe some days you're just not going to have it. Some days maybe your goal was to get up and you get up earlier than normal because you've been oversleeping, but some days you just don't have it. So it's
Hmm.
like, I'm going to give myself some grace for today, but tomorrow I'm going to do it. But move, do something because, I do believe like if you're doing nothing, the world around you is changing, but you're not. And when we're talking about purpose and life work, this is something that you can't do nothing about. Like there
Hmm.
is a calling for you, and being stagnant is really setting back your impact in this world. Now, I liken it to if you have if someone prepares a meal of food and nobody eats it and it just sits there and rots. Think about like a Thanksgiving meal or something, and the table is set, the turkey's there, the dressing, all these different side dishes, wonderful food, but nobody eats it. It does nobody any good at all. There's no nourishment, nobody can benefit from it. So with your purpose and your talents that you have in this world, by you not taking any action, like there's somebody that needs your voice. They need
Hmm.
your smile. They need your encouragement. They need your hands. Whatever that gift is that you have, like you're not able to benefit the world and it's rotting on the table like a meal. So you have to do something. But like to your point, when we start doing this comparison game, like,
Hmm.
oh, this person accomplished all this. I mean, I've gotten into that. Like, I've written a book about life transformation. It's like, I don't know if I should do it because there's all these great authors. It's like, that's them. What is your story? What is your path? And because there's someone out there who can relate to you. And it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be some big grandiose thing. Your purpose may be just something smaller. Everyone's purpose isn't to change the world.
Mm-mm. It's not?
Hmm. I know. Shocker. Yeah, spoiler
So,
alert.
yeah. So the next piece is enact the discipline, and I can see where it goes now because you've gotten
Yeah.
all these different things in line. You got an idea about the distractions, and you figured them out. You've been able to really get a good handle on it. Not a great handle, but you got an idea where you're going, and then you discover yourself. You're finding out some little things. And you've
Hmm.
generated some goals. Now it's time for some discipline.
Yeah. And we kind of rolled into that unintentionally. a moment ago. And the enacting discipline is doing something every day. There's um I'm sadly and admittedly I'm not like a huge reader. I read books, but I'm more like I read news, I read articles, and I read maybe a couple books a year. There's some people that are like, I read a book every week, and that's just not me. But there's a book, Og Mandino's book, and it's an old book. Like I think it's The Greatest Salesman That Ever Lived. And one thing he said was, um, I will multiply my actions to multiply my success, something along those lines.
Hmm.
And to me, that encapsulates an acting discipline. Like multiplying your actions will multiply your success. So doing something small, that discipline, and everybody's discipline is different. And there's also people who don't have discipline. They may have grown up even in a structured home, maybe even military parents who were like, it has to be this, 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 and this, but they still lack the discipline. So everybody is different. For some people, it's easy to enact discipline because of their own motivations or how they were raised, but other people, it's really hard. So for the people that really struggle with discipline, that's when it's really like, how can we do something small each day, and you can go as deep as writing out one goal a day that you're going to accomplish. That way, you have that little carrot that is feeding you each day.
Hmm.
Waking up, and at the same time, you may need to build in a reward system for yourself. It's like, here was my goal for this week. If I accomplish it, then I'm going to do this. So finding what those things are, how to find discipline even when you don't feel like it. And I think when you recognize your purpose and that calling, like when you really know what your purpose is, your body is going to move and it's going to respond accordingly. Like, and no, it won't be every single day because the body does need to rest, but you're going to have that natural progression of movement and discipline because there's this purpose that you're set out to accomplish.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I know I'm going to jump back to change for a little
Yeah.
bit. And sometimes when we do enact that change, and as I've already mentioned, it's not necessarily comfortable.
Hmm.
And change does make something good,
Yeah.
as well. But
Hmm.
one of the things it leads itself to is adversity. So,
Yes.
what do you learn about yourself through adversity?
Oh my gosh. That I feel like that is a whole podcast. Like change is so hard for most people. It's I like change, but I hate change.
Yeah.
When I look back at my life and there's been changes, and most of the changes you can't control,
Mm-mm.
sometimes you can, and really inside, especially if there's like an addiction or something that maybe you're fighting. It's like, I have to change. Nobody can do that work but you. You actually have to do the work to change. And that is hard work. Other changes are just like, you may have lost a job, you may have lost a loved one close to you. There may have been a loss, or you may have experienced some kind of health issue or accident. Like, these are changes that are not easy.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back at my life and some of these big changes that I've experienced, I mean, one of the biggest ones growing up was I changed schools when I was a sophomore in high school.
Oh,
I grew up in a town in Oklahoma from kindergarten all the way through my freshman year. Everybody knew everybody, and I changed my sophomore year, and I didn't know anybody, and that sucked. It was hard. But honestly, like, that change, I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that change, because that's when I started writing poetry and rhymes and started getting into music, and that changed the trajectory of my life. And I love where I am now. Like, if I would have stayed in the town I grew up in, like, I don't know, like, I still had goals and dreams and ambitions, but I don't know if it would have looked like this. So change, like, I know people, even people in my family, who, this is my life. They've drawn a circle around it. And to me, some people call it like the comfort zone. I call it the fear zone. Like, what are you afraid of? Like, this is not a comfort zone to you. You're afraid to step out of this because there's something beyond. You're so used to what this life looks like. You think negatively that change is going to set you back, when change could be what you need to propel you forward. So step out and see what that change is like.
yeah. When you said comfort zone, I was writing uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And,
it can be an uncomfortable situation when you're dealing with change.
yeah, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It really is okay. And the world is not coming to an end. You
No.
may think it is, and some of the changes, yes, we're not in control of, and they
Yeah.
come in And one of the things that can be done during that lack of comfort is to pause again long enough. And it can be
Mm,
anywhere from a minute, a few seconds, and it can be even days.
yeah.
But just step back and breathe. Step back, take
Yeah.
it easy. Uh, be nice to yourself.
Yeah.
And you're uncomfortable, and I get that. And
Hmm.
just pause for a second and see, okay, so I'll say the word, what needs to change? What do I need
Yeah.
to do to change this comfort level?
Right.
Is there something that I can do to make it a little easier for me to do and still accomplish my goal
Yeah.
and still enact my discipline?
Hmm.
So learn through adversity, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, there's like quick short story here dealing with change was there was a time where I lost a job and it was really unexpected to me. There were like people around me that were they were being laid off, but they were like more operations. And from a business perspective, you're like, okay, operations costs money. My role was more kind of in sales and generating money for this company. So I didn't anticipate that I was going to lose my job. And then it happened unexpectedly. I was called in to my boss's office and, was basically told I have 20 minutes to pack up my desk and leave. And I was like, I mean, I was completely shocked, like instant change in my life. And I remember like having this little box going in my car and like my hands are shaking and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like I'm a single father at this point. Like I have more bills than money to cover everything already. And now I have no money. And I don't know what I'm going to do with my life because I don't know. So disruption, a big disruption financially, emotionally, mentally, everything. But what it allowed me to do was really look at my life and be like, I don't want to experience this again. So I'm going to start my own company. And it's the company I have now. 10 years later, it's the company that I have now. And it wasn't an instant shift to where I started my company and I was doing it full time. Like I didn't have money coming in. So I was working other jobs while I was building up my company on the side. But that change in itself, again, another big change that happened in my life, changed the trajectory of my life. Like I have more stability here, like than I've ever had with any job. And I love what I do. And it's my terms and my schedule and my vision and everything. There's freedom in that. And I'm not saying that's for everybody. Some people don't aspire to work for themselves, and that's fine. I don't knock it, man. Just find what works for you. But these changes, they can happen, but it's how we respond to the change and recognize we're still alive, we're still here, we still are we our dreams can still be our dreams. And maybe this change was necessary to occur, no matter how bad it is, for us to really shake up our life and be on the path that we need to be on.
Hmm. So we're looking at the adversity and we're
Mhm.
looking to roll with it, kind of, I guess is a
Yeah.
way to put it.
Yeah.
And don't let it overcome you. And you can
Hmm.
find outlets. And I'm going to
Yeah.
say sometimes those outlets can be like little lifeboats.
Hmm.
And it can be
Yeah.
simple. It can be something very simple. And you can think about maybe even some hobbies that you could do to change some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are your outlets. And
Hmm.
it's so important that you take time for you said it earlier, take time for yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. What kind of hobbies do you have, by the way? I
Yeah.
know
I
you do
mean,
yoga. You probably do
yeah.
music.
I don't do music though. Surprisingly, I don't.
Okay.
I sold most of my equipment. I know this is an audio, but you can see here on the video. These are
Yeah.
still the speakers from my studio in the background.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but no, I actually like I like to travel. And I just like I like to spend time with my family, man. I have 3 kids, but they're all like in their 20s. But it's stuff like that. Like I love the work I do, and I know this may sound weird to you or to the listeners, but like it's almost like my work is a hobby. Like it interests
Mm-hmm.
me so much. And
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of a blurring of my life and my hobbies. But if I was to just check out, I love to listen to music. I like to go to concerts and stuff like that. But those are my hobbies. I'm not like a I guess I'm a vinyl collector now since COVID. Like I've started buying vinyl, probably more so than I should. So I guess that's a hobby as well. Kind of fell into that one.
Yeah. That can happen. I get
Yeah.
that. and I could certainly go down a rabbit hole with you on that, but
Yeah.
that's not what this is about today.
Yeah. Part two, the vinyl discussion.
Tune in next week for the next no.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So what makes yours different? You kind of touched on it, and I just want to, before you even share the information about that, I
Yeah.
appreciate the thing that, so you go out and you write yourself a book,
Hmm.
and it turns out that it did, and it did well, and
Yeah.
so forth. But one of the things
Yeah.
that I think about is, so I write this book, and everybody else is writing this book.
Hmm.
So what makes yours any different?
Yeah. I mean that kept me from putting my book out for so long because I had this book and it took me almost 10 years to put out. Like I started it about 10 years ago and I wrote on it here and there for about 7 years and put it down for 2 or 3 years and almost talked myself out of it. Like why would someone want to hear from me? Like I'm not an author. Like I've written a book before, but it was more like it was a digital fundraising book for nonprofits. But this is more personal. It's personal development. It's personal stories. Um, and then I just kind of had this realization that like my story is different. Like why it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like if I have something to share and I don't share it, then I feel like I haven't filled that part of my purpose. So I'm gonna write this. I'm gonna do this for me, but there's somebody out there that needs to hear this. And despite whatever authors are out there, and this is me speaking, but to the listener, despite whatever your dream is and whoever's maybe quote unquote living your dream, like they're not you. Like there's authors that people don't resonate with them, like maybe they
Hmm.
don't like how they write, they don't like how they look, how they're, the language that they use. They don't like their story, they can't relate to them. And that'll be the same case with me. There will be people that can't relate to my story, may not like what I look like, what I sound like, whatever. But some people will say, wow, like that story really resonates with me. And this is a model that is new to me. So let me find out what that's about. So it's really just my unique story. My life is poured into this book, what I've gone through, the tools that I use that help me overcome difficulties in my life and tap into my purpose. I'm like, this book helped me. So it's like writing it and everything that I went through helped me. So I know it can help somebody else, which is why I decided to go ahead and put it out.
That's good. That works.
Yeah.
That really does work.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
so during our talk that we've had, what I'm
Mm.
seeing is if I were to look at this podcast on the whole, I would talk about things that we're trying to discover people's talents and purpose.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm seeing also is a good framework to begin from. It would be to look at that book, look at your
Yeah.
book that you've got.
Yeah.
Because if you start to employ the elimination of distractions, discovering yourself, generating goals, enacting discipline, you're going to discover two little things about yourself, your
Yeah.
talents and your purpose,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the subtitle, How to Unlock Your Talent and Purpose. And, finding your edge. I look at edge as it has multiple meanings. Of course, it's an acronym for the model that I created, but also like the edge. If you think about what an edge is, it's a line of demarcation. And it's like it's the beginning of one thing and the end of another thing. So
Hmm.
your life before you recognize your talents and your purpose, that's one life. And then after you really tap into and live that life in your talents and purposes, like that's the beginning of another. So the edge is really this work that you're doing. This line of demarcation is the work that you're doing to discover yourself and to do that life transformational work. So it's contained in this book. It's been, tools and models, reflections, journal prompts. You're going to get something from this book. If you find your purpose, fantastic. If you don't find your purpose from this book, because I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to find your purpose, you are going to learn a lot about yourself and you are going to be in a better place than where you are now after you apply the methods within this book.
Okay. And so one of the things I always like to ask people is what does Jeremy do to create
Mm-hmm.
a better life for himself?
Yeah. I mean, this work that I'm doing, writing, my company, my relationships with my friends, my spirituality, um, all of that. Like I call it the five forces of balance. It's family, it's professional, it's health, it's spiritual, and it's personal. So for me
Okay.
to create a better life for myself, like I address each of these 5 areas. How's my relationship with my family? What's my professional life look like? I'm not going to be working 60, 80 hours a week, running myself crazy. How am I taking care of my health? Because health is crucial to life. If you're not healthy, then your life literally is in danger. My spiritual life, what my prayer meditation life is like. And then personal, the hobbies, like what are things that I'm doing for me, because at the end of the day, you still have to take care of yourself. So, yes, I'm going to buy some vinyl records and listen to them because I need that for me. I'm going to travel because I enjoy that. So, how am I taking care of myself? So, all these 5 forces of balance, this is being mindful of those is how I create a better life for myself.
Okay. And if you don't mind my asking, what
Yeah.
do you do from the standpoint of spirituality? What's your level of
Yeah. I mean,
approach to that?
I'm Christian. So, I'll watch a service, I'll pray.
Okay.
Meditation, like to me, meditation is prayer. I do some meditation, but not a lot. So that's what really keeps me grounded.
Okay. That's cool.
Mhm.
All right. So let's rehearse again what it is and how it is that people can get in touch with Jeremy.
Yeah, you can get in touch with me. My website is jeremyhazelwood.com, which is Haselwood. Also, Instagram, jeremy.hazelwood. My book, Finding Your Edge, How to Unlock Your Talent and Purpose, you can get that on Amazon or Apple Books. So, and you can also, like, if you need information and you want to connect with me to do a workshop or
Hmm.
speaking, you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. And LinkedIn, but at the same token, if somebody wants to reach out to you, you do have your website, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm
of
assuming
course,
contact page and that kind of
for
thing would be
sure.
the very easy way to do it. Good.
Absolutely. Yep.
Any last thought that you might have for our listeners today?
No, I just hope that the listeners, you got something from this, you felt inspired. And if there is one thing that you've been putting off doing, like write that down right now and do it this week, or at least take a step towards doing it this week, because maybe it's a big thing that you're trying to do and it can't be done in a week, but begin that, whatever that first step is, and make that your goal for the week.
Excellent. Jeremy Hazelwood, thanks ever so much for being our guest today on Toward a Better Life, and
Yeah.
I hope you can go out and create a better life for yourself today.
Cool. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Jeremy, for your helpful insights to find our edge. You can connect with Jeremy through his website, jeremyhazelwood.com, where there's also a link for his book, Finding Your Edge, How to Unlock Your Talent and Purpose. There's a link in the show notes, by the way, for Jeremy, and you can look him up there. As Jeremy and I talked about, there's so much to be said about finding and working with your talent and purpose. Across the Water has a wonderful song, Gateway, that also talks about that pursuit and that I believe really fits well with today's show. Drish Munia and Amber Bast are across the water. They produce music in their living rooms using iPhones and GarageBand 5,000 miles apart. They like to say, we're learning as we go. Back in 2023, Drish Munia and Amber Bast attended an online course together. And Drish Munia was tuning in from Stratfordshire, UK, and Amber Bast from Nevada, US. During that journey, they recognized each other as children of the earth and kindred spirits living 5,000 miles apart. Drish Munia wrote a song in late 2023 for an Eisteddfod, a gathering of bardic participants in a Welsh tradition, in anticipation of Imbolc. She sent it to Amber Bast for her comments. A few days later, the song came back with wonderful harmonies, and their collaboration, Across the Water, was born. In 2024, Amber Bast visited and stayed with Drish Munia and her husband in England. In their words, the highlight was the two of us singing our songs together. It was a week neither of us will ever forget. A friendship forged in a song around the wheel of the year. And Anam Cara for life. Anam Cara, by the way, is soul friend in Celtic terminology. It's about the gateways we all go through, is what they say. It's the gateways that we all go through in life, and how Druidry and Obod in particular illuminate those gateways for us to give us permission to go through and have a look around. We often have to leave our creative endeavors behind us when we travel the road of family and work. We spend much of our lives feeling perhaps a bit sorry for ourselves for the things we cannot find time or energy to do. But the questions, have you no joy? Have You No Happiness? Encourage us to think about and unlock what makes us happy. Gateway is a song of gratitude.
I came upon an iron gate. I heard the blackbird sing. The scrollwork signaled me to wait and show what I would bring. I'll bring my fears, I'll bring my hate, I'll bring what I would hide. I'll bring it all, oh guardians great, to see the other side. Have you no joy, they asked. Have you no happiness? No music bright, no music true. Well, we're waiting for a song, no less than all that's inside of you. We're waiting for a song, we know it's all inside of you. I sat and thought, I thought and sang, I thought and sang some more. The gate swung open with a clang, I entered through that door. The land beyond was empty, its all is for you to fill. And when you think you're ready, please join us beyond that hill. Have you no joy, they asked. Have you no happiness? No music bright, no music true. Well, we're waiting for a song, no less than all that's inside of you. We're waiting for a song, we know it's all inside of you. I set to work creating with all my strength and will. Perhaps they are still waiting for me beyond that hill.
Thank you, Trish Munia and Amber Bast, and also Jeremy Haselwood for making this a very special edition of Toward a Better Life. If you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, please do visit my website, towardabetterlife.com. It's continuing to grow with the new blog entries and ways to enhance your spiritual journey and a few products to assist you on that journey, including the opportunity to buy my book, Two Feathers Spiritual Seed Planter. I also offer Toward a Better Life virtual and in-person sessions as well. Send your inquiries to me, Kevin, at towardabetterlife.com for the details, and information about Jeremy Haselwood, as well as Across the Water, is available as well on the show notes for the program. Join me next week, and I'll see you then. And if you enjoyed the episode or learned something great today, please consider following and subscribing to Toward a Better Life through your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget, please do leave a review on Apple Podcast. This helps the podcast more than I can say and allows us to reach more and more people every day. If you have questions or if you'd like to share a story, music, prose, if it's an audio, please send an MP3 file. Or if you want to be my guest, please write to me, Kevin, at towardabetterlife.com. That's Kevin at towardabetterlife.com. Until next week, enjoy your journey toward a better life.